Welcome to Fawley Refinery and Chemical Plant, the biggest and most complex in the UK, and thank you for joining our event team. We're shutting down many of our refinery and chemical units for a short period in order to carry out inspections, maintenance and to install new projects on our site. We'd like to make this an event unparalleled success for you and for Fawley that will be remembered as the benchmark for turnaround events for years to come. We hope you will very much enjoy working on our event, and as a team we can deliver a safe, on time and budget event. Together we are responsible for each other's safety, so please concentrate on the important messages that are contained in this induction film. And if you have any questions or require any clarifications, please speak to your supervisor or ExxonMobil representative.
The following film will give you all the information you need in order to safely work on our turnaround. Please give the turnaround induction film your greatest attention, as the messages and information we'll give you will help to keep you and your workmates safe. We'll ask you to confirm your understanding of our rules and systems by completing a test at the end of the film. If there's something that you're unsure of or need help with, please ask either your supervisor or an ExxonMobil employee, and they will be happy to advise you. When you work at Fawley, we hold you accountable for doing your job safely, but also you're accountable for the safety of the people you work with and anyone who comes into your work area. We must also ensure that no employee receives less favourable treatment due to their race, colour, sex, age, disability, ethnic or national origin. Furthermore, any form of harassment or intimidation is considered unacceptable, including degrading jokes, sexually graphic comments, display of inappropriate material, physical interference or unwanted flirtations. As a company, we believe solidly in nobody gets hurt, and we consider that we have the best systems and rules to ensure this is achievable. Whilst you're working and visiting our site, we want you to go back to your families at the end of the job in the same way you came in, safe and well. In the area of safety, the most important rules are referred to as life-saving rules. We fully acknowledge these 4 rules may go further than other places you may have worked at, but we make no apology for this. As new to the site people, you are expected to understand and follow these without question. You must adhere to these 100% of the time. Because experience has shown that not following these rules can have serious safety consequences and even lead to loss of life. Follow fall protection procedures, including 100% tie-off. Follow work permit procedures. Follow hazardous energy control procedures. Do not defeat safety critical devices without proper authorization. Let me explain each one in detail. Fall arrest. You must continually use personal fall protection equipment. If exposed to a fall of more than 2 meters, if you are 2 meters off the ground and not on a permanent complete deck or green tagged scaffold deck. If the risk assessment for the job requires fall protection to be worn below 2 meters. The only exception to this is when using ladders and stairs. Remember, you don't necessarily need to climb on a structure to be exposed to a fall. Some excavations can be well over 2 meters. Always tie off tools and equipment when working at height, and in addition barrow off the area below if there's a risk that materials or tools could fall. Work permits. You must follow our work permit procedures and have appropriate permission to do any work on our site. In order to sign and request permits, you must be trained. When a work permit is required, it must be in place before work commences. It should be filled in correctly with no blank boxes, and all permit conditions must be understood and complied with. The permit will tell you the type and location of the work and any additional requirements, such as special protective equipment. Energy isolation. You must follow our energy isolation procedures, including the use of personal padlocks where required. Before conducting equipment maintenance, all sources of hazardous energy must be isolated and controlled. Hazardous energy control devices, such as lockout, tagout, must not be tampered with or removed without the appropriate authorization. Critically, process equipment must not be opened or worked on until it has been properly drained, depressurized, isolated and de-energized, unless necessary steps have been put in place and the correct authority has been obtained. Safety critical devices and equipment must not be interfered with, removed or bypassed without the correct authorization and mitigation in place. Remember, these systems are designed to protect workers from dangerous situations occurring on the site or on equipment. Let me repeat, because experience has shown that not following these life-saving rules can have serious safety consequences and even lead to loss of life. Failure to follow these rules can result in significant discipline up to and including exclusion from our site. There are other key site rules you need to follow. Failure to follow them could also lead to your exclusion from the site. Do not possess or consume alcoholic beverages, prohibited drugs or other intoxicants, or be under their influence whilst on site, and do not bring these substances onto site. You must comply with your company's alcohol and drugs policy. If your company suspects you've not complied with this policy, or you're involved in an incident on the site, you'll be required to undergo an alcohol and drugs test. The site limit for alcohol in a blood sample is half the legal limit for driving on the public road. Do not smoke other than in designated smoking shelters identified by smoking permitted signs. Do not bring matches or lighters for smoking into the site. There are lighters in the designated smoking shelters. Do not bring firearms, unauthorized explosives or weapons on site. Do not indulge in horseplay, fighting or malicious damage. You will face disciplinary proceedings if you do. Always carry your personal site pass with you. You'll need it to enter and exit the site. Do not let anyone else into a restricted part of the site or let them use your pass to gain access to the site. Passes are individually awarded after the induction and are not transferable. Personal site passes will also be required to tag onto and out from the turnaround units. There have been a number of road traffic incidents on site, and as such, the challenge is for us all to maintain the highest standards when driving. A site practice known as HALO will be a focus area during the turnaround, which sets out clear expectations of operating and interacting with plant machinery and vehicles. And you'll receive specific training on this prior to starting work at Fawley site. Always shut off your engine or machinery if the plant gas alarm sounds in your location. Never use mobile phones, radios or other electronic devices whilst driving in refinery areas. Do not use mobile phones at all, except within designated areas of site buildings, unless you are specifically authorized and have identification that you have completed the required training. The wearing of light eye protection in all areas of the site is mandatory. This applies anywhere inside the fence line, including non-operational areas, for example car parks. If you cycle, you must wear bright clothing and ensure your cycle is in a roadworthy condition. You must display front and rear lights in conditions of darkness or poor visibility. It is mandatory to wear a cycling helmet or safety helmet with a chin strap when cycling on site. This includes when riding a bicycle for work use. We encourage you to carry out your own loss prevention self-assessment prior to cycling on site. Turnaround event tools. At Fawley, you'll understand that everyone uses a behaviour-based safety system called the Loss Prevention System, or LPS. The LPS system comprises 7 main tools. We truly believe that the LPS system, which encourages open and honest sharing of all losses and near losses, is the best way of safely managing safety at the site. We also know that to fully train everyone in all the LPS tools to get the best from them takes time. Because of this, we are going to share some of the main LPS tools you can use most effectively, and in addition have developed expectations with very clear outcomes in order to keep you and your workmates safe when on the site. The tools we'd like to share with you are LPSA, Loss Prevention Self-Assessment, LPS, Loss and Near Loss Reporting, BEST, Basic Standards and Expectations, including Skills Practical, Risk Assessment, Loss Prevention Observation. These tools will give you the best possible information and define the expectations for you to comply with the site standards. We'll now give you some more information on each tool. LPSA. You will be trained in the use of LPSA, one of the most valuable elements of your safety toolbox. You may, through your working day, be asked to share your LPSA or with a colleague, supervisor or manager. This is called a touch. The touch is a key safety communication tool in the field or even offices. Near loss and loss reporting. Near loss and loss reporting is a way of sharing incidents so that they can be investigated in order to determine the actual root cause to avoid repetition on the site. Reporting near losses and losses is all about sharing an incident or experience to avoid reoccurrence. How often have you thought, wish I'd known about that, before it either led to an injury or an incident? The near loss or loss is a free lesson for the rest of the team, and sharing may prevent an injury or dangerous condition. These are the most valuable. Basic expectations and standards. Best. As we suggested earlier in the film, because we have had previous incidents that have led to dangerous occurrence or injury on the site, we have developed some simple common sense rules that we expect everyone to adhere to. Specific practical training on these rules will be given prior to starting work. Best Skills Practical, which covers basic PPE, climbing ladders and stairs, line of fire, and prevention of dropped objects. In addition to showing you the best rules in this film, we will, as part of your induction, ask you to participate and show your understanding on our Best Skills Practical rig. We think the practical approach to showing the best rules will improve the communication of them and underline the expected behaviours that we all must follow. Using the Best Skills Practical rig is also a good opportunity to highlight any areas where you require clarification with our rules. We all need to demonstrate the correct behaviours from day one of our turnaround event and not wait for an incident to occur before we correct the behaviours. Risk assessment. In order to reduce the risks associated with more complex tasks, we use documents that highlight risks in order to lower and mitigate them. These documents are Task Risk Assessments, TRAs, and Job Loss Analysis, JLAs. A JLA is a tool used as a job aid in order to help individuals identify hazards in the work activity. TRAs are used for documenting the steps of higher risk tasks and reducing the risks to a low level with mitigation steps. Observation. Both documents, the JLA and TRA, require the job steps to be followed and no changes to these steps without further manager or supervisor review. In order to check that the work practices in the documents are understood and followed, we may observe the task being carried out and record the percentage adherence to the document and the work practices being carried out. The feedback from the observer is given to the work team by the supervisor, underlining the positive behaviour observed and also identifying areas for coaching of the work team or improvement of the document steps. Short service workers. We don't expect anyone to understand every Forley rule at once. This would be impossible. In order to help new-to-site workers acclimatise to Forley, your company will have prepared a graduation plan based on basic site knowledge. When your company thinks you have enough knowledge of the site, you'll be allowed to do certain tasks without a buddy or mentor being present. Until then, all short service workers are to be accompanied. After this induction, technicians and supervisors will each receive a safety guide. Along with outlining key site information, it also allows contractor and ExxonMobil supervisors to test your understanding of the site rules and also leave feedback on their interactions or touches with you. As a short service worker, you'll be expected to wear an orange helmet or hat stickers. This will identify you as a new or vulnerable person. Intervention. We ask that if you see an unsafe condition or behaviour when you're on the Forley site, that you don't walk past it. You make an intervention to question the activity or unsafe condition. Please never walk past an unsafe act or condition. It is your duty to intervene. Talk to the individual or work group concerned. If you don't feel comfortable with this action or you don't receive a satisfactory response, you may want to let your supervisor intervene or follow up the response on your behalf. Emergency response. Each block has its own distinct emergency alarm and muster points. You must take the time to familiarise yourself with the tone of the emergency alarm, where you're working, and where the muster point is. See your local induction card for details. The Forley site is subject to the Control of Major Accident Hazards regulations, commonly referred to as COMAR regs. As required by these regulations, we have prepared updated safety reports detailing the measures we take to prevent and control accidents of all kinds. If a major incident occurs, a special COMAR alarm will be sounded if there's a danger to the public. It has a distinctive sound like this. Remember, if you do hear the specific alarm for the block you're working on, or the site-wide coma alarm, switch off any powered machinery and move immediately across the wind to the muster station. Remember, the nearest muster point is not always the safest due to the wind direction. It's essential that before you start work in an area, you familiarise yourself with the emergency facility locations, such as muster points, safety showers and emergency telephones. You must also tag into the area that you're working in. This is to ensure that you're accounted for in an emergency. Electronic tagging stations are located at convenient entry points to the units. Incidents and injuries reporting procedure. All incidents and injuries must be reported immediately. Report directly to the First Aid Centre that's located on South Avenue next to the fire station, accompanied by a co-worker or supervisor. If you believe that the casualty is injured beyond first aid and should not be moved, contact the site emergency services. They will attend the scene. How to contact emergency services? By pressing 1 or 9 on a plant emergency telephone, you'll be connected to the emergency services. Call urgent, urgent, urgent on the radio. Try to give clear and concise instructions of the incident and the location, and return to the casualty if it is safe to do so. To summarise, so now you know what is involved for you to achieve your part in Nobody Gets Hurt. If you think you could become one of Forley's A-team players, but you need some more clarification, or if you didn't understand any aspect of our expectations, please speak to your supervisor or an ExxonMobil member of staff. They'll be more than happy to help. During the rest of this film, you'll be shown some of the more general site information that will help to keep you safe during your work at the site. General plant hazards. Forley is a large site with many different process streams that can be flammable, toxic or corrosive. It also has a number of other plant hazards that are common in the refining industry. For example, these include high pressures in equipment, hot surfaces and pipework. We will highlight in this section some of the general hazards that are common within Forley. However, it is essential that before you start to work on a particular block or business team that you're taken through the local plant hazards. In summary, here are some of the site hazards that are present on the Forley site. Asbestos. With Forley being an old site, many of the pipes and vessels are clad in asbestos insulation material. Although there is an ongoing program of removal, many pipes are still insulated with it. Most asbestos lines are marked, but if you do find a material that you think may be asbestos, report it immediately. Asbestos may also be present in some older type joints and gasket materials. If you're unsure of the gasket material, treat it as asbestos and deal with it accordingly. Chemicals. You must also be aware that many of the pipes carry substances that can be harmful to your health or are flammable. You must obey permit procedures for opening pipework in order to comply with COSH and to contain any spillage. Acid or caustic. Some plants have areas that contain corrosive chemicals, such as acid or caustic. These areas are surrounded by red lines. Remember, to access these areas, you need to upgrade your gloves and glasses to gauntlets and goggles. Never assume that a puddle is water. Many dangerous chemicals are clear in appearance. H2S. Nearly all the refinery has process streams that contain H2S, hydrogen sulfide. H2S is a very toxic gas with a smell of rotten eggs. Most H2S lines and vessel flanges are marked with light blue paint. H2S can asphyxiate in relatively low levels and will quickly remove your sense of smell. When on site, you must carry an H2S detector and escape respirator. It's also imperative that you know how to use the respirator. You must also be familiar with how to wear it. It's no good trying to learn in an emergency situation. Running or live equipment. You may be working in an area where there is equipment that is still operating. You must assume that all process equipment is live and contains energy until proved otherwise. And to work on it, you must have the relevant permit to work. Remember, hot pipes can remain hot for hours after isolation. Ensure all equipment is adequately cooled before opening. They could contain hot water or residual substances. We'll now give you some information regarding systems and policies that are important for you to understand prior to working at Forley. The Forley Permit System. Forley uses a work permit system to control work being carried out anywhere on the site. Control of work at a refining complex like Fawley is critical because of flammable and toxic material that is stored and processed. The main content in a permit is to outline the work that is being carried out, the area it is being carried out in, and authorising signatures of the process team who are responsible for the process unit. A permit may also reference checklists, attachments and procedures that are necessary for the work team to carry out the work safely. Permits are mandatory. All work requires a permit to be in place. There are very few exceptions. Permits must be read and understood by those doing the work, with any special conditions followed. The permit must be displayed at the job site. Personnel carrying out work should know what is required by any documents that are referenced on the permit. As a contractor, you need to have completed training and received a red or green card showing your authorisations in order to sign sections of the permits. Remember, working without a valid permit is a breach of the life-saving rules. There are 4 main permits to do work at Fawley. Equipment disjointing permit is required when breaking into or opening all process systems. If a breakpoint is not identified by a numbered tag which matches the number on the permit, then it should not be broken under any circumstances. A hot work permit is required for any task that will generate heat, as well as the more obvious ignition sources such as direct flame or sparks. General work permit, used for lower risk tasks that fall outside of the 2 previous permits mentioned. Turnaround area permit, TAP. For minor, lower risk work activities, a turnaround area permit can be used. This permit remains located in the permit office. There are 2 other key documents and a series of other checklists which can be attached to permits depending on the work. Confined space entry permit. This is not a permit to work. It is a permit to enter a confined space and will normally be accompanied by either a general work or hot work permit in order to do the work in the confined space. All entry points will be numbered and barried off when not in use. Do not enter a confined space or put your head or torso inside a confined space manway without a valid entry permit. Your life could depend on it. Electrical isolation certificate. Permits to do work may reference required isolations. You should apply your personal padlock to the location identified on the electrical isolation certificate. In a turnaround situation, a controlling supervisor may padlock on your behalf, in which case you will be informed. Rigging and lifting. Rigging and lifting will be a key focus area for us during this turnaround. All personnel carrying out lifting activities must be fully qualified and competent in the Safe Working Practice, SWP 22. In addition, you'll need to have passed the SWP knowledge test. You will then be added to the list of approved riggers. Because you may be qualified to carry out lifting and rigging activities on another site, this does not automatically qualify you to execute lifting activities at Fawley. Lifting includes work with cranes, high-abs and also chain blocks. It is essential that lifting areas are barriered off to prevent entry and potential walking under a load. At Fawley, walking under a load is not allowed under any circumstances. Confined space entry procedure. You must never enter a confined space without an authorised confined space permit. This is a permit for entry only, not to work. Confined spaces are subject to rigid entry procedures that ensure that all people entering are accounted for. In addition, confined spaces always have a ventilation plan and a rescue plan posted adjacent to the entry. ExxonMobil prides itself on its environmental policy and standards at Fawley, with the mindset and culture of protect tomorrow today. In keeping with the outstanding marine and forest area where we operate, we strive to keep our emissions and waste to a minimum. When you're at Fawley, you'll need to play your part too. We have appropriate skips for most materials. Metal, wood, cardboard, general waste and compressed asbestos fibre gaskets. We even have orange HiPod type oils disposal units for oily waste and contaminated PPE. When disjointing pipework and equipment, always consider what residue could be in the line. You must use a drip tray in order to catch materials that are released. There are appropriate disposal points on all the turnaround event units. We need to ensure that we use them correctly. Housekeeping. We also ask that your workplace is kept in a clean, safe condition. all materials and waste items are stored appropriately and all waste cleared quickly from the site. We call this good housekeeping. A tidy, clear unit will give you more room to manoeuvre and work. Poor housekeeping standards are unacceptable and affect everyone and have been known to contribute to injuries and incidents. Remember, be a negative polluter. Clear rubbish and waste items from the site. Don't leave it. Safety recognition. We also have programs in place to recognise and encourage the positive behaviour that you show. We want to recognise good performance and also, as we put it, going the extra mile for safety. You can receive a safety recognition for a variety of reasons, from making a situation safe, reporting an incident, or coming up with an innovative safety suggestion.
Thank you for your attention during this turnaround event induction film. We realise that we have conveyed a lot of key information during this film. In order to show your understanding of that information, we will now ask you to complete a test. Again, if there are any aspects of the film that you require help with, please don't hesitate to ask. It's much better to ask questions now than to find out the hard way at site. We want to make sure that we are all aligned on the safety standards that everybody needs to work to ensure no one gets hurt. Ensuring no one gets hurt will always be our first priority.